Welcome to Dare, the show for innovators, entrepreneurs, and startup leaders who dare to shape the future. Your hosts today are Ned Hayes and Cecilia Mariani. Dare is brought to you by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare podcast is excited to welcome Alan Versteeg to the podcast today. He's the CEO, the co-founder of Growth Matters, a company that helps teams to develop better sales training. And he's developed over 2,000 sales managers across 45 plus countries and growing. Alan has a real passion for the sales profession. He's not your typical sales guy, though, so we'll find out more today. Welcome, Alan.
No, thanks for having me, Nate, and great to be with your listeners.
Yeah. Well, you've done this across many different countries and cultures. So what are some of the key things that you make sure people learn from you that they can use elsewhere?
No, I think the key thing with learning is to first understand learning. So we are more loyal to past experience, we're more loyal to our lived experience, and we're more loyal to our mindset. So the key thing we need to do when we're trying to drive learning is to make sure we're shifting mindset through frameworks. So if I say one word, the key thing is mental models and frameworks, because they shift our perspective of the world. So our meaning and our mindset then shape our model, and it's the model you need to change if you want to change the method by which we behave.
Right. So it's really changing your thinking overall. It's not just changing one little behavior. It's changing how the frame in which you see the world, right?
Well, that's exactly that. I mean, just to give you a little backstory that tells that is, I started my career as an electronic engineer. Wasn't my fault. I watched Airwolf, Knight Rider, and MacGyver, so I thought that's what I was going to become. And I didn't enjoy the job, read a book that shifted my life, went into sales. Please don't leave now, but got fired from my first 4 sales jobs. And my frustration was I did everything they told me to do. So they said, you need to know your product and get 100% for product knowledge test. I became the world's best talking brochure. They said you need to be more motivated, become the most motivated world's best talking brochure. But I couldn't crack the nut until I worked under a manager. And he said these words to me. He said, Alan, is selling is a profession or a job? I said, no, it's a profession. And he said, well, how hard have you studied for this profession compared to how hard you studied for electronic engineering? And a kind of penny dropped. And what it actually done is it jolted my mindset. It jolted my frame of reference. That if I was going to be good at this, I needed to really study it. And he said to me that sales is the worst paying lazy job and the best paying profession. Make it a profession. And that kind of a backstory highlights the importance of a mindset change. But it's not as quickly as just changing your mind. Sometimes you can change your mind, but you lack a way of seeing the world differently. And that's why a framework is always so powerful. Just a different mental model that can shape your behavior.
Right. That mental model, you've mentioned that a couple times. So that mental model of shifting out of it just being a job into being a profession. And I'm really curious about how you actually do this across different countries, though. I mentioned this country thing because you're from Southern Africa, right?
Yes, South Africa.
Right. And then I was actually born in China and grew up there for a number of years and have worked in many different cultures. I've lived on 3 different continents. I know you've lived in different places. And sometimes a sales technique that works great in Europe doesn't translate to North America, or vice versa. A sales technique that works great in Japan doesn't work well in some places in the US. I remember the stories of the first Japanese salesman coming over here to sell early Japanese cars really flopped because they didn't understand how to communicate across cultures. So I'm curious, how do you create sales techniques that work across cultures?
So there's 2 parts to the story. I mean, the number one is an amazing resource. There's a book, I forget the author's called The Culture Map. It's really about understanding the nuances, which I think are more important for facilitation. But to answer your question, it's because I go one level down. Selling won't help and helping will sell. So if you teach people the right value, the right lens of what selling is, obviously you need to adapt that to your environment, adapt that to your audience, adapt that to your culture, to use your language. But the principles of selling won't help and helping will sell, that I have expertise that can help you navigate your complexity, that I can bring you to a better outcome in your life. If I operate from that, I can generally drive sales. Because when customers don't buy, 90% of the reasons they give are not skills orientated, they're not knowledge orientated, they are values orientated. They were too aggressive. They were too customer-centric. They didn't listen to my needs. And we try and fix this at a competency level. But let me pause there. Why do we not have to teach entrepreneurs how to sell? Because the first thing they have is their clarity of value proposition. Then they have conviction of their value proposition, which creates confidence, and that creates competence. We try to teach it the other way around, as if we can teach the outcome without the mindset, the bottom of the iceberg. So to answer the question, we focus on sales managers, but the reason we can go across cultures, from a learning perspective, I need to understand the nuances of facilitation. But from a principles perspective, anyone buying from people buy from their values, and anyone being a good sales manager is about unlocking human potential. Those principles don't change around the world. How we teach them might be nuanced. How we present them might be nuanced. For example, respect in one country might look different to respect in another country. But if you sell with noble purpose, then generally that shines through the competencies and skills.
Right, right. And one thing you've mentioned this a couple times, you've talked about working with people, and you actually do coaching. So why does coaching matter? Why can't you just have somebody read something and be good to go? Why is coaching a differentiator?
Oh, Ned, now you got me on a soapbox. Okay, the first thing, let's say this about coaching. In my profession, I'm yet to meet a leader, manager, or coach that doesn't say coaching is the most critical thing you can do. Yet it's the first meeting cancelled and it's the last metric measured. Well, we are paying lip service to this. But the reality is we don't understand why coaching works. And coaching works, the best way I can explain, is because it's an immediate feedback mechanism for something that doesn't have that. Give an example. You learn how to drive a car, you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know. Then you get your learner's license and you're able to go and drive. Now you become aware that you have no skill, right? But then after driving for a period of time, you become consciously competent. You become aware that you can do this. And eventually you drive to work on a Saturday and wonder why you went. But that gap between conscious incompetence and conscious competence requires feedback. So a car gives you immediate feedback. A motor vehicle gives you immediate feedback. But in sales, you don't get that because there's distance between you and the outcome. In certain behavioral skills, there's distance between your behavior and your outcome. The coach's job is to accelerate that journey by giving immediate feedback, by being the satellite for the cruise missile, as opposed to just hoping. So that's the big reason. Coaching is a feedback mechanism that accelerates and shortens that learning journey between incompetence to competence.
Right. And I've run a company before, and my executive coach was a great wingman to me, just helping me to understand things in the sales world, even the engineering world. Being able to have someone who's a coach on the sidelines helping you to course correct, as you said, being able to help that missile land its target is absolutely key.
Yeah, but we normally neglect because we have started to become loyal to optics versus loyal to impact. We're so concerned about how things look and what everyone's looking at that we don't go, the number one thing I need to do as a leader is to develop people. And to do that, I need to pick time in my calendar to develop people. And if I don't protect their time, I'm forgetting my number one job. And that would be my frustration, that we've got this understanding of what good coaching does in unlocking human potential, which is going to become even more critical in an AI large language model world, where we actually have to coach our differences into humans. But we're doing this lost. We're doing this at the back of the queue. Whereas if you remember frontline sales managers early 80s, all they did were on the road with their salespeople in the front lines coaching behavior. And now we've outsourced it to CRM, assuming it could do the same thing. And it can't.
Right. It absolutely can't. Well, we've talked at kind of the high level so far, Alan. The big ideas, differentiation, coaching, all of those. Can you tell us how the rubber hits the road? Can you give us some examples from real life at Growth Matters, how you've actually helped teams and helped individuals to succeed?
Yeah, so specifically where we've seen a difference is to just an understanding of how we perform, right? And just to give you some practical examples, so many people or listeners on your call, especially if they're in corporate environment, are living with a drowned calendar. They double book, there's too many meetings, they can't get control of it. So just to share with you how we practically shift this and the impact it gets. Number one, you can't manage time. You can only manage self. To manage yourself, you have to know your trade-offs you're going to make. To know your trade-offs, you have to understand where your impact comes from. So it's not time management, it's trade-off management. What we don't do is we don't define our impact. So we'll teach a manager, your impact as a sales manager is to get the number by executing the strategy to your people to drive customer value. Now you know the trade-offs you should be making. This is what we get so wrong in time management. We talk about priorities, but we're not actually talking about priorities, we're talking about urgency. Priorities is what drives impact. What is the impact of it? Okay, so now that they've got that, practically, I've got to say no to a meeting, or I've got to create a meeting. Give them a simple framework. It's called the 3Ps. Trust me, valuable to your listeners. When you send out a meeting request, you answer 3 questions in the note.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose. We will know this meeting is done when. So that's the purpose. Participation. I need you there, Ned, because preparation. Before we come to the meeting, it will be valuable for you to do this. Now, understand something. Everyone I speak to says that, yeah, but I'm drowning in my meeting, and everyone just sends out meeting requests, but they do the same behavior. So the first thing you want to do is take ownership of yourself. When I send a meeting request, I'll be conscious of those 3 things. But now when someone double books you, you don't just accept because it's good for objects. You now reply and say, hey, Ned, I noticed you booked a meeting on my calendar for a meeting I already have. To make sure I make the right trade-off on my impact, could you please clarify for me 3 things? Purpose. When will we know we're done? Participation. Why do you need me there? Preparation. What I need to. And if they don't respond, you don't go to the meeting. Then they phone you the next day and say, why didn't you come to the meeting? Saying, well, I had to make a trade-off with my time based on the information in front of me. And like this, you start to change culture. I got a call from a lady in Silicon Valley. She said, Alan, it took her 3.5 weeks and a little bit of pressure. They have half the meetings, twice the impact, and they've all joined a book club. Like those simple principles, we forget change things. And this is for me the chaos. It's kind of like beam me up, Scotty. There's no intelligent lifetime here. We know these meetings aren't working, but we just keep honoring them. But saying pushback is not advice. It's first, understand you are making a trade-off with your time. And then here's the downside. The trade-offs we're making are to our family, to our health, to our balance. We're saying yes to all the wrong things instead of saying yes to what matters so we can say yes to what really matters. And that's a practical example of what drives impact. Simple, executable, high impact things that aren't behavior. I don't tell you how to say no. I don't tell you the behavior. Just the framework and the method, the ingredients in the recipe, because Ned's got to apply that to his culture. Ned's got to apply that to his environment.
Right.
You got to be the chef in your story.
Absolutely. And the ability to step back and see the bigger picture is absolutely key. Instead of just running like a rat through the maze, trying to fit in all these meetings, actually thinking bigger about the impact and especially the impact on your personal life and your customer's personal life. Like, is this actually making a difference in a positive direction? Rather than, I was so busy today. What did you actually accomplish is the better question, right? Not how busy you were.
Exactly, Ned. And that opens up a good next stream of conversation, which is we no longer value thinking time. I mean, if we look at our children, they no longer even understand what it means to be bored. Because whenever we're bored, we have a device. Yeah. And the problem in sales environments and corporate environments at large is we've negated the power of this thinking. So we teach this principle called week 13, the middle of the month, middle of the quarter. So protect a week 13 where you can do your review. How am I doing here? Think about how you can do better. Then how you're going to prioritize that, and then run hard for 12 weeks. But we don't do that. We just keep running through the mill, and then we step away for some, good family leave. But by week 2, our brain starts to go, wait a minute, if I tried this at work and I did this at work, and that creativity and that ingenuity starts to unfold again. Well, we are so busy doing that we're not giving ourselves the space. And here's the irony: the doers will become irrelevant. Technology is going to replace doing, as it did in the industrial age, as it did in the printing age. It's going to replace the doers. It requires the thinking, and we don't honor it. So when you say it's that high level view, we have to reflect. Reflection is a superpower. There's a wonderful quote by a Harvard professor, Joseph Bararuka. Without reflection, we drift. Others shape and control us. But with reflection, we can bend or even change the trajectory of our lives. There's got a whole bunch of research on this. We don't. We just go. And when we're bored, it's a device. Let's just do some, what I call dumb scrolling. Let's just kill those brain cells and then hope things change. Anyway, as I said, you got me on the soapbox.
Yeah. Well, so I work primarily with technology companies. A lot of the entrepreneurs who listen to this show are technology driven. And I think all too often in the technology domain, we end up being a catalog, as you said, kind of a living brochure. All of the features that we have, all of the functions that we have, all of the software, the abilities there. And all too often, I see startups fail because they are a technical brochure about the product instead of actually understanding the customer. So can you tell us, if you were working with, let's say I had a new company and I hired some new sales guys and I gave them the product, how would you nurture them to success?
So there's a long part to that, but the starting point would be a principle of the mindset. The first thing we need to understand, and I use the metaphor, we're a Sherpa. We have the expertise of going up and down the mountain, that our job is not to be the mountaineer. Our job is to guide our customers to the top of the mountain. To do that, you have to give yourself agency and trust that you have value to give. That's the first thing, the mindset. When we get to the model, I have something called the Sherpa Canvas. So it's a framework. I just want to take one piece of that framework, specifically in the tech space. One piece of the framework says this. We have this, which changes this, so you can get this, right? So we have this feature, this mechanism, this part of our technology, which increases, decreases, moves up, moves down, moves left, moves right, improves, whatever, something, so that you can get this business outcome. And generally, technical people, when they're designing, they design because there's a problem they're solving. When they sell, they go to the future, and they forget that part of their journey. If I was nurturing a technology company, I'd say, make sure you're not talking about features, advantages, and benefits. You actually educate this from the problem backwards. So customers who are struggling with this, we can change this by this thing that we have. But we're so busy, we get so excited, and don't get me wrong, I've been there. We're very excited about how we train our content. But we get excited about the mechanics of what we do. When we go to the sales mode, we go, let me talk about the features. But what you forget is what got you there as a technical entrepreneur is you're solving a problem for the world. Now go find the world, educate the world on their problem. And all you have to do is, yes, I know that little feature you built is amazing, but what does it change? What actually goes up or down or in or out or stays the same? What actually changes? And what do they get? What's the outcome they're looking for? And just that simple exercise, those three things, they go, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to start selling from this side. What are they trying to achieve? What problem are they trying to solve? And then how does the feature solve? And you just have to flip that script. And by the way, they have the passion. They can do it very quickly. I've worked with a lot of technology companies where the speak becomes outcome-based. And not because some miracle behavioral technique. Just a framework of thinking. We have this which changes so they can get this. We have this which changes they can get this. Unless they care about what they can get or care about the change, don't mention the feature. So go understand what matters to them on this side. And I believe that's how all product training should be lived. Look for customers with these problems. We can change these things with these features that we have.
Right. And what's fascinating is that in the world of software as a service, SaaS companies, many technology leaders think, I can do this without sales, not realizing that if you don't have somebody whose job title is sales director, everybody is sales, right? The CTO, the CEO, they're all sales. So they have to use these techniques, even if they don't consider themselves salespeople. They have to make sure the website is communicating the messages of the benefits rather than just the features, that it's actually getting the customer to their end goal, right? So I think that's absolutely key, that if you don't have a salesperson, you are the salesperson.
Yeah. And I'd argue that even if you do, you're a salesperson. There's a wonderful book by Daniel Pink called To Sell is Human. And the reality is, whenever you persuade, you're selling. The only difference is what you're passionate about. And that's the risk. The risk is that passion for what we have is overridden by the outcomes we're driving. And I'll share with you a story on that. So when I'm speaking to CEOs about what's wrong in sales, they often go, our problem is our salespeople don't know our value proposition. And I go, what's your value proposition? And then you watch the panic, right? Because they don't quite know succinctly what their value proposition. And they M and they R and they go left, they go right. And that's the piece you want to get right, because everyone in the business needs to own the value proposition. No matter what role you're in, let's understand the value we take into the market, because then you become purpose-led, but often we become technically led.
Fascinating. Right. So everybody has to be on the same. Yeah. So where are you going next with Growth Matters? What's the next stage of growth?
No, so we've fortunately not allowed to announce it yet, but it was awarded a couple of weeks ago. So we've won a global contract for a large global software company. We're now translating into, I think, 9 languages. The beauty of today's world is you can now leverage AI technology, actually. So virtual training, people are listening to it in their natural language. So the ability to scale is massive. The big shift outside of our sales management focus is something called Impact 13, which we're starting to see that a lot of the problems we're fixing at a sales management level are actually corporate challenges. The inability to focus our energy, the inability to manage our calendars, the inability to hold people accountable. And I believe that as technology starts to eat away more at the task-related work, it's going to become critical. So we'll do what we always do. We'll leverage the customers that already love us and then start taking that kind of a product to market because the market needs it. But that's really where we see going with, big global growth plans for a guy in South Africa. But, COVID came with some challenges, with some blessings. The challenges were, I get on a plane, I fly to a country, I go in a room, who's going to ever work with me again? To the fact that now you can win global business from a camera in in the east coast of South Africa. It's crazy. When your mindset's right, what you can accomplish.
Fantastic. Well, related to that, our final question, our signature question for this podcast is, what do you dare to dream, Alan?
I dare to dream that humans realize they are human beings and not human doings, that we have a different role to play in the world that we think we've had to, and just to find our potential and hunt for that potential. There is so much debate and so much noise going on in politics, and that is just, it's diminishing our quality as a race. And we are human beings, not human doings. And I dare to dream that there's a world where we value the beingness, however different, and realize that makes us far greater for what's coming next in our journey on this planet. I dare to dream that we are human beings, and we respect that, flawed and all.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. Really appreciate our time today, Alan. Thank you.
It was great, Ned. Thanks so much. Great conversation, and all the best for you and your listeners.
Okay. Take care. Thanks to our guests today for their great insights on DARE, the podcast for innovators, entrepreneurs, and startup leaders. If you'd like your story to be featured on DARE, just contact us at info@darwaft.com. DARE is brought to you by Darwaft, the tech team that can make your vision a reality.